Hour, but most of it staying dry, highs lower 80s. Tonight, muggy and mild, lows lower 60s. For Friday, a few widely scattered, mainly afternoon showers and storms, lower 80s, with more showers and storms later Saturday. Famous Buffet in Trenton for some of the finest home-style cooking around. Larry also offers catering. That's Larry's, open Thursdays through Sundays, just off I-59 on Highway 136 West Trenton. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Fox News Talk 1240.
What is freedom? Is it a constitution? A piece of paper that's written and stored in a granite vault someplace in New York, in Washington, D.C.? Is it 9 old men and women who sit there and nod sagely over? Is it perhaps Trump? Is he your hero protecting your freedom? Or the Senate? Or the House? If you believe that group, any one of those groups, singly or together, is here to guarantee your freedom, then I hope you will listen to this half hour, because I'm here to disabuse you, I hope, of that notion. I'm Sam Spade, and this is the Sam Spade Hour. And my objective for this hour, every single Friday from 1 to 2, is to help you get through the second Great Depression. If you think things are going great in this country, if you think Hillary was right and should have been elected because she would have straightened things out and things would have gone well, if you think it's just a matter of having the right people in office make the right decisions and everything will be hunky-dory for the future, all these problems are minor and they're gone, if you think that, if you really believe that, if there's no doubt in your mind about that, then you need to switch to another station right now, because I have nothing to say to you other than things that will raise your blood pressure. But if you're getting scared about what the future of this country and the world is, if you're concerned that you're not going to be able to keep bread on the table to feed your children or a roof over the head of your wife and yourself, if you're worried that there's going to be foreclosures and job shutdowns, loss of all of the political and economic wherewithal that you're used to, this is the station you need to pay attention to, because we're concerned with what's coming and we're concerned with how we can help you navigate through it. If you would like to join in the discussion or ask any questions, please give me a call. My name again is Sam Spade, 423-800-8949. Or you can email me at noogaradio@gmail.com. Attention, Sam Spade. Okay, what is freedom? Well, freedom has existed in this country long before the list of items that I mentioned when we started out. Long before 9 old men, long before the Constitution, long before the Bill of Rights. We were free long before then. What did we have? What made us free way back then? Let me give you a short list. It was a loaded rifle in your closet. It was a gold coin in the palm of your hand. And it was confidential communications with anyone you choose. Back then, you know, if you wrote somebody a note, you were pretty sure that it was going to get to the other end if the person you gave it to was trustworthy, without being picked up by some form of electronic surveillance. And so those three together were enough. The right privacy, the right protection against search and seizure. Together, they performed the function of a physical barrier against tyranny. Even if the government went wrong, there wasn't a whole lot they could do to encroach on your freedoms. Unfortunately, nowadays, that has changed drastically. Nowadays, the only way you can really be free is to have the modern day equivalent of each one of those items on the list. And this is most important, you have to have the protection that protects them all. Nowadays, it's critical. And before, before the Constitution was written or when it was written, it was so effective a protection that nobody even thought of it. It was like the air they breathed. And it was the ability to remain anonymous. You know, if you own a firearm and you think, well, I don't have to worry because I don't register this gun, so nobody knows that I have it. It is hidden in the closet, and therefore I can use it if necessary to protect myself and to protect freedom. Well, that's no longer true. We'll talk about that further on in today's episode, but let me just mention to you that if you go to the gun store to buy ammunition with a credit card, if you take your weapon to a gunsmith, he knows who you are. Somebody can hack into his computer and find out that same information. If you go to a range with security cameras, those security cameras are available to the NSA, whether that's an intentional concept or not. And of course, if you're carrying a cell phone with you with GPS tracking, the government knows not only that you went to the range, but by using the cameras, they even know who your shooting buddies are. So don't think simply because you haven't registered your firearm, the government doesn't know that you've got it. They even know what caliber it was. And maybe if your gunsmith is careful in making notes on the computer, they even know how often you clean it. The same is true of a gold coin. You know, you think that if you have some form of equity money hidden away in your house, that you're safe. No. Used to be that way. But now the government has financial records that track that gold coin. If you paid for it by withdrawing money out of your bank, they have that information. If the gold coin dealer that you bought it from made records and sent you that gold coin, his computer is subject to hacking by the NSA. They know you have those gold coins. In fact, there's so many ways, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, that are becoming more and more common and scary, that if the government decides to outlaw gold tomorrow and they really want your gold coin, they can pretty much come and get it because they know if you've got it most of the time. And finally, communications. You know, when communications was something that you wrote down on a piece of paper and gave to a friend to send someplace, by and large, the government never found out because it was just too much trouble for them to try and get a hold of that piece of paper and read what's going on. Nowadays, the NSA hoovers up everything that goes on, not just on the internet, but on your cell phone communications, where you go to meetings because the cell phone GPS tracker sees what's going on, what goes on in the meetings because the microphone is turned on, whether your communications is face-to-face or electronic and remote. The government has access to it all, and its access is stored in a great big database up in Utah. Anytime they want, they can drill down and find out anything they want about you. So the most important requirement of your freedom, the most important protection of it, is not firearms, it's not equity money, it's not freedom from debt, it's not secure encrypted communications. It's the ability to have or engage in any of that without the government knowing you're doing so. It's privacy, it's secrecy. One of the things we talk about in this show, although I probably won't go into it in a detail on this particular session, is how you can go about securing your privacy and your secrecy. I hope you will continue to listen in future shows when we talk about this. We are on every Friday from 1 to 2 here in Chattanooga on AM 1240 and FM 92.7. Okay, the important point that I'm trying to make to you here is that, well, as Sam Spade says, freedom is never given, only taken. A piece of paper can't give you freedom. 9 men and women on a Supreme Court can't give you freedom. The best intentions of any elected official cannot give you freedom. If you want your freedom, you must take and own and control the tools that guarantee that you have it. You must have personal power. In addition to the items I've mentioned on the list, that's personal economic power. That's the ability to control your life through your health, through what you eat, making sure that you have a food security, clean water. All of those are important, because if the government gets control of any of those resources or capabilities, they have a tool to force you to do what they want and not what you want. Here at the Sam Spade Hour, we talk about various aspects of those things at different times, and I hope you will stay tuned in the future to listen. Okay, let's talk about one of those particular issues. 1933, in the middle of the Depression, Roosevelt was elected. 1 week, exactly 1 week after he took the oath of office, he shut down the banks in the United States. You couldn't get a penny out of a bank. If you didn't have money in your pocket, you were shut down. That's it. You had to go to your neighbors to beg for food. You had to go to the grocery store to ask them to extend credit. Nothing moved, nothing worked. Now, it wasn't quite as big a crisis then as it might be today, since a larger percentage of Americans were rural and farmers and self-sufficient. But just imagine today, what would happen if you woke up one morning and found out none of the ATMs work? Went to the bank door and they all said, bank is closed until further notice. You know, this is not something that has never happened before in this country. In fact, at the start of World War I, they actually closed every financial institution except the banks for a period of 6 months. You couldn't trade stocks. You couldn't trade bonds. You couldn't get your money out of a money market fund. Nothing. Everything was shut down. And whatever you happened to have in cash in the bank at that time was all you could get. Now, the one that in 1933 was only a week, but it could have been longer. Nobody really knew how long it would be. And recently, it's happened plenty of times in other countries. Cyprus is a big example. You know, the banks in Cyprus were shut down and people wound up having to bail in, which means the banks just took some of their deposit and there was nothing they could do about it. When the banks finally opened, weeks and weeks and weeks after they shut down. Greece has been an ongoing banking disaster. And the worst, of course, is Venezuela. If you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on in Venezuela and the collapse of their economic banking system, you need to do so, because it's a big, big warning that it could happen here at any time. So let me ask you, what if it does happen tomorrow? It'd be a nationwide thing, right? It wouldn't just be here. It wouldn't just be Chattanooga. It would be all over. It might be New York City. Suppose your daughter's going to school in New York City. There's going to be a lot of chaos going on, right? Everything is going to be shut down. She's not going to be able to buy food. She probably wasn't smart enough to have any cash hidden away someplace, so she's suddenly flat broke. She gets on the phone. She says, Dad, I need some money. I want to come home. I can't stay here. This has become a very scary place. What are you going to do? If you follow the advice that we have been given during other parts of this show, you will have some cash, you know, Benjamins, $100 bills, stashed aside someplace. You can't just go to the bank and have them send money because the banks are shut down. You can't take those $100 bills to Western Union because Western Union will be shut down. That's part of the banking system that makes sure they don't function. You could call up FedEx and stick a wad of $100 bills in an envelope and send it out by FedEx if FedEx is running, but FedEx might be shut down as well. What can you possibly do? How could you get your daughter money if all of those things stop working because of a bank holiday? Well, I have an answer for you. You may not have considered it, although I'm sure you've heard of it in the past, and that's Bitcoin. You know, the thing that makes Bitcoin so phenomenal is, first of all, it's equity money without physical possession. What that means is that it's impossible to print. It's impossible to create without upfront work, upfront effort. And yet it's ethereal, unlike gold. Very much an image, if you will, between the physical and the ethereal world. So that whereas gold is an object you hold in your hand, Bitcoin is an object that you hold in a computer system. As long as the computer system is functioning, as long as it hasn't shut down, Bitcoin can still be transmitted. It does not use any third party to do that. It does not use the banking system. It does not use Western Union. It does not use a broker. It does not use Wall Street. And that's what's so startling about it. If all of the disasters that I have talked about that could be caused by a financial collapse occur, and you have Bitcoin, you can send your daughter Bitcoin. Your daughter can turn around to her boyfriend or whoever it is who's willing to drive her here in exchange for gas money and give him Bitcoin. And he can drive her back here to Chattanooga, and suddenly you're reunited with your family in what could otherwise have been a very serious crisis. In the middle of a banking collapse, the only way that you have of delivering money long distance to somebody else will be Bitcoin or one of the alternative currencies, cryptocurrencies, but I don't particularly recommend them. They're not as stable or widely used. Speculation, fine, but not as an emergency source of money to use if the banking system collapses. So that's really something that I highly recommend you learn about. Now, I'm not suggesting that you put a large amount of money in Bitcoin, but I am suggesting at least that you put enough money in Bitcoin to get your daughter home from New York City or whatever the equivalent kind of remote problem that may pop up is. And I suggest that you learn about Bitcoin. You learn how it works. You convince yourself that what I'm telling you about its stability, about the fact that it can't be manipulated or hacked by the government or any of the government entities like banks. You need to find that out and make yourself comfortable. The only way you do that is to actually spend Bitcoin. Buy someplace, put it in a wallet, learn what the wallet is, and spend some. And the best way to do that is to join a group in which people teach each other how to do that and practice how to do that. Such a group does meet once a month here in Chattanooga. And that's the message I want to give to you in this part of the segment, is that every Tuesday, fourth Tuesday of the month, from 5 or so to 6, sometimes later if there's interest in the group meets on the 4th floor of the downtown public library in Chattanooga. That's this Tuesday. That's the day that they meet. And they are there to help beginners learn about Bitcoin. They're there to help each other learn about Bitcoin. They talk about where you can buy it, where you can sell it, what other more complicated ways are involved in developing Bitcoin and using it as money in various ways. But for your purposes, all you need to learn is the basics. You need to learn how to buy it, how to hold it safely, and how to send it to somebody like your daughter so that she can get back from New York City. I hope you will consider going there. It is an excellent, excellent use of your time. Okay, let's talk about another interesting experience that I had just recently that pertains directly to the points that I talked about at the opening of today's session. Imagine for a moment, you're sitting there with your wife, and this actually happened to me, and she received her first smartphone. I don't even have a smartphone. I'm an old guy. She received her first smartphone. It was an Apple. It could have been one of those Alexi things, but this happened to be an Apple. And she's playing around with it, trying to get it to work, trying to put numbers in there. And she says, well, I won't say G-O-D-D-A-M-N, but that's what she said. She said, I cannot, so-and-so, figure out how to use this phone. And the phone, in a nice feminine voice, said, I'm sorry, I can't comment on religion. That's right. The phone just piped up and said that. This was Siri, which I guess is the online avatar that comes with the Apple phone. And the point of this discussion was that Siri was listening to what she said. She didn't want to talk to Siri. She didn't want to tell it anything. She didn't even know what a Siri was. But because the system is set up so that all the time you can call that phone and ask it to do something, And I think she must have said something early on in the discussions, perhaps, that caused it to think that it was being told its name, because I think that's what turns these phones on. It was turned on. And it was transmitting everything she said to whatever Apple system exists in the cloud that takes this information and translates it into computerese that the computer's intelligence system can then understand and act on and respond to. It could just have been just as easily. She could have said, well, thank goodness, now I've got 12 gold coins stashed in that loose floorboard in the basement. We're safe now. And all of a sudden, if there was some little routine in that robot that was listening for the word 12 gold coins or gold or coins or stashed or any combination thereof, boom, somebody at the NSA will have a record that you've got 12 gold coins hidden under a floorboard in the basement. That's what's so scary. What's so scary is that not only does this computer, and Alexia, of course, is the same, smart TVs are the same, smart thermostats are the same, smart computers, smart refrigerators are becoming the same. Not only do they help you whenever you ask them for something, but in order to be able to provide that service, to be able to help you, they have to listen to you all the time. They're constantly monitoring what you've said. You have spies in your house that are listening. If you want to plan a protest, if you want to talk about leaving the country, if you want to talk about your dislike of the current political structures, if you want to talk about how you don't want to pay your taxes and you got to find a way to get around this, if you want to talk about how it is illegal to do this or that or this or that, and you're going to do it anyway, guess what? You're being monitored. People are listening to everything you say. And that's such a terror, given the first subjects that we talked about early on, that I really strongly recommend you start being very, very careful about not saying anything incriminating or doing anything incriminating anywhere near any of these devices. You know, if you think about something that's been around for quite a while, and nobody really thinks about it very much, that's called executive privilege. You know, we've all heard Trump having executive privilege. We heard of Obama having executive privilege. What exactly does this mean? Well, it means that the people that run our government have agreed that if you want to have a huddle with your football team to talk about the play that you're going to have to beat the other football team is not allowed to bug your huddle. They're not allowed to find out your plans ahead of time. And that's what's so terrifying when we find out that Trump was bugged, that Trump's plans were picked up and used during the campaign. Now, you can say, well, he shouldn't have had executive privilege or expected it because he wasn't president yet. Now, that misses the whole point. And the whole point is that freedom must come from the ground up. If executive privilege is important enough for the chief executive of our government to have when he organizes and fights his political battles, then it's essential for you at the grassroots level to have that same protection, to be able to organize protests, to be able to organize information campaigns, to be able to structure your opposition in silence. I hope you will think about that issue, and I hope you'll stay with me because we have more to talk about in the next half hour. This is Sam Spade Show.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Chattanooga's best kept secret, Boyd Speedway. Come see the fastest dirt late model drivers in the South compete for a purse every Saturday night. Pit gates open at 3, grandstand opens at 5. Racing starts at 7. Bring the whole family for a night of fun as they tear it up on the dirt track. Go to BoydSpeedway.net and check out the Dirt Simulator. BoydSpeedway.DirtSimulator.com. Chattanooga's best kept secret, Boyd Speedway. Fun-filled, outrageous racing. We'll see you Saturday night.
The Dirt Showdown #1 with limited late models, crate late models, sportsman, hobbies, street stocks.
Boyd Speedway.
There's a reason why Alliance Physical Therapy is a choice of professionals and those who care about first-class, top-notch service and treatment. Because at Alliance Physical Therapy of Chattanooga, we don't just treat the symptoms in your body. Whether you're suffering from stiffness, muscle spasms, back pain, chronic headaches every day, stress of life demanding more and more of you, Alliance Physical Therapy takes a holistic approach to healing, mind, body, and soul. Alliance Physical Therapy with a location near you and 9 others in the Chattanooga area. If you don't have a doctor or if your physician's plan for chronic pain is not working, Alliance Physical Therapy will help. Visit Alliance Physical Therapy on the web at nopainpt.com. That's nopainpt.com. Alliance Physical Therapy.
Window Depot of Chattanooga. They're locally owned and operated and been around since 2008, installing top quality vinyl replacement windows. You get the best price and service in the area. Top quality double pane, energy efficient windows. They look great and save you money.
Oh, I love to save money.
You'll also save money on your heating and cooling costs. Call 894-0011. 894-0011. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. Sales and installation professionals. You'll get a fantastic job while helping to enhance the value, appearance, comfort, and efficiency of your most valuable asset, your home. Other window providers? No way. Window Depot Chattanooga's windows qualify for the TVA rebate. Sliding doors, gutters, soffits, fascia, garage doors, and other home improvements. If you want to save a ton, call 894-0011. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. Window Depot of Chattanooga. Sales and installation professionals.
Oh, he's got bad breath. And once he slobbered. But your dog's teeth are important for his health. The canine dentist at Wolf Fever has an offer. Listen, ultrasonic cleaning, polishing, x-rays, only $135. Ordinarily, you'd pay $175. For a few days, pay only $135. And get $115 in freebies as a thank you. Grooming, boarding at the inn at Wolf Fever. Act this week. Use anytime this year. Floss and rinse now. 344-1913. WolfTeaver.com.
Is your career taking you where you want to go? If not, talk to Covenant Group Insurance, especially if you like helping people. Call and learn how you can work for yourself, but not by yourself. Intense but free training, plus a fantastic lead program, plus office support equals your success, your prosperity. Gross at least $75,000 your first year selling insurance. Call Steve or Jada for a confidential interview. That's 855-8484. Maybe the most important call you'll make all year.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM News Now. A car plunged 100 feet off a cliff early this morning. The police say it happened on West Side Drive. Police closed the Bachman Tunnel while they were clearing the area. Traffic cops say the car actually crashed before going over the edge of the cliff. Photos show a maroon sedan being hoisted up by a crane. Windshield smashed and the front end mangled. 35-year-old Tyrone Stevenson was shot on Cityco Avenue, apparently driving himself to the hospital where the police were called to investigate what happened. Mr. Stevenson has not said who shot him, but he did say he was shot on the 1900 block of Cityco Avenue. Violent Crimes Bureau investigating. Hamilton County School Board members agree they need more money, and they're going to be giving a $24.5 million needs list to county commissioners. School board members hope that the county commission will increase property taxes to help fund what the school board needs. So far, the county commission appears apprehensive about a tax increase. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect partly cloudy and warm weather out there through your afternoon. Could see a spotty shower, but most of it staying dry. Highs lower 80s. Tonight, muggy and mild lows, lower 60s. For Friday, a few windy scattered, mainly afternoon showers and storms, lower 80s, with more showers and storms later Saturday. Come to Larry's world-famous buffet in Trenton for some of the finest home-style cooking around. Larry also offers catering. That's Larry's, open Thursdays through Sundays, just off I-59 on Highway 136 West Trenton. And I'm Storm Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Gold confiscation. I know if you have ever heard the subject, you've probably been told by all of the alt media that it's very unlikely to happen. It's not going to happen. You're safe from it. I hope to disabuse you of that particular philosophy and thought right now, too. I hope you'll stay tuned and let me make my argument. I'm Sam Spade. You're listening to the Sam Spade Hour. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 to help you get through the Second Great Depression. If you think things are going great in this country, if you think we're just going through a minor little political and economic problem and the ship of state will right itself very shortly, if you think Hillary should have been elected and she would have done everything necessary to eliminate all the problems and would have been going great if she had, then this radio show is not for you. Please change to another station. But if you're scared about your future, if you're scared about how you're going to provide for food and shelter for your family, if you're worried about whether you're going to be able to continue to speak up about the political issues that are destroying our country, if you're worried even that we're going to go to war and how you're going to keep things moving, stay tuned, because this is the station for you. This is where we discuss those issues and help you get through the crisis as it develops. If you would like to join in the discussion, please give me a call, 423-800-8949, or email me at noogaradio@gmail.com. Attention, Sam Spade. Okay, last time I gave you a list of several key variables that you need to have control of in order to maintain your freedom. Because freedom, Sam Spade says, is never given, only taken. And if you want yours, you have to be prepared to do what has to be done to take it back from the government. Now, one of those items on the list was gold, the ownership of gold. If you're trying to sell gold to the general public, if you're a coin dealer, you minimize the chances of there being a confiscation. You say, don't worry about it. Just buy the gold. It's safe. You're covered. Well, remember, gold was confiscated once before in this country in 1930s and was illegal for 40 some odd years for a citizen to own. Now, there are many people who have reasons why that is not applicable, and they might be right. You know, making predictions, especially when the predictions about the future is very difficult. But they might also be wrong. And the people that sell gold don't want you to know the downside to gold confiscation. So today, I'd like to talk about those issues in the hopes that I can convince you that not only should you own gold, which I agree with, but you should be very careful to ensure that nobody, including the U.S. government, has any idea that you own it or where it is. Okay, let me begin. First of all, the issue of gold confiscation doesn't have to be an armed trooper knocking at your door. It can be much more subtle and just as effective. For instance, it could be a very high tax on the sale of gold. Right now, if you think about it, income tax for gold is already prohibitively high. It's 28%. Gold, you cannot have capital gains when you attempt to sell gold if you make a profit on it. And since that profit is really just based on the increase of gold price due to inflation, you're really having capital confiscated if you own gold and you sell it publicly and you tell the IRS about it. There's nothing at all to stop the government from going one step further and making it 80%, 90%, 95% tax rate on gold. They could pass laws making it illegal for you to transport gold, making it illegal for you to buy gold. It's already, illegal for you to transport gold out of the country without filing the proper forms. I know you're saying, what, wait, I can take gold out anytime I want. Well, actually, that's not true. Of all people, the Census Bureau, if you take a look, you'll find this. The Census Bureau has a regulation, doesn't seem to be enforced, but it certainly could be enforced, that if you wish to take gold out of the country, you have to file a document with the Census Bureau telling them that you're going to do that. And of course, needless to say, the system is set up with every airport in the country to x-ray all your carry-on baggage. And if you happen to have gold when you're going out of the country and they make it more aggressively illegal, you're going to have a very hard time getting gold out of the country. So one way they can confiscate gold is through the soft technique that was really pretty much used in the 30s. They simply said, you have to turn in your gold. If you don't turn in your gold, there's going to be severe penalties. And we're going to regulate the gold market, and we're going to watch every gold ounce going back and forth. And so now you're in a situation where if you don't want to comply and you have gold, you either stop exchanging it for value for anything, because to do so is very risky, or you turn around and provide it to the government in exchange for money and let that be the case. There is, however, a more serious issue that I'd like to bring up. The government could be much more aggressive about it. Remember, if they make it illegal to own gold, there's probably going to be a black market in gold. And the price of gold is probably going to be very high on that black market, which means anybody that owns and sells gold on the black market, at least in nominal dollars, is going to make a significant profit on it. Let me ask you, can you think of anything else illegal that people sell to make a significant profit? I can. Drugs. I mean, that's, after all, one of the major subjects in our country for many, many years was the war on drugs. What happens if the government catches you with drugs in your house, a significant enough quantity so that they can say, well, you're a dealer? What happens is they have civil forfeiture. They say, we own your house now. You're out on the street. We own your bank account. We take all your assets. You are, to use the words the Romans used, you are proscribed. You are effectively broke. And if you want it back, you have to take them to court and fight it. And there's absolutely nothing to stop them from doing the same thing with gold if they make the ownership of gold illegal. So now you're faced with the fact that you either turn in your gold coins, and I'm sure they will pay you a reasonable amount. They're not going to just take it and throw it in, you out on the street because you come in to sell your gold coin to them. They will give you, just as Franklin Roosevelt did, they will give you the current market value of gold. But of course, in a hyperinflation, in a hyperinflation environment, the current market value of gold is not going to stay very stable for very long. So they could wind up forcing you to choose between the risk of losing everything you own if you keep a few gold coins, or turning them in accepting the whatever current market value they're willing to offer in inflated dollars that's going to quickly go away. Finally, there's the third issue. I talked about this earlier on, last half hour, and that is that the nature of the surveillance state is such that you have to think about the fact that you could have said something or done something in front of one of many different digital spying eyes that now exist in your house that could have revealed that you have this gold. It's not as if somebody has to listen all the time. This is what was so interesting about the experience I had with my wife in Surrey. That wasn't a human being listening to what my wife said. That was a programmed robot. And they can be programmed to understand what you say, interpret what you say, flag the statements that are the most significant, and pass only those statements on to a human being, which means they don't need very many people to monitor a large percentage of the country in the hopes of learning if you have gold and where you have the gold stored. And even if you didn't say anything that could trip you up, you don't know you didn't. And so added to this mix of the fact that they are providing you with the incentive of a cash payment to sell the coin to them, perhaps a tax-free cash payment if you sell the coin to them, and the fact that it's illegal to sell the coin to anybody else, and the fact that if they find the coin in your house, they will get you on civil forfeiture for economic crimes. Added to all that is the fact that you don't even know whether they know if you have a gold coin because you might have said something without realizing it that has tipped them off. All of those issues together are enough to make you seriously consider, if not outright give into and turn gold coins over to the government. Now, many people say, well, why should the government do this? I mean, gold is such an insignificant issue now. Nobody really cares about it. Well, actually, that's not true. In fact, I can tell you some significant individuals that do care about it. The head of the Chinese central bank, the head of the Russian central bank, just to name a few. Gold is going into central banks on a steady basis and never coming out. It's a black hole all over the world. And that is because banks everywhere are beginning to realize that they need to have gold to back up their currency. If that happens, if they go to a gold standard and suddenly all international trade requires gold to back up that trade, well, the United States is going to be behind the eight ball because we don't have very much gold anymore. I know. On paper, we have 8 tons, but in fact, nobody has ever seen that 8 tons since the 70s, I believe. So we really don't know if any of that still exists or not, even though on paper it's supposed to. And so what's the United States going to do? Remember, if we want to maintain a strong military, we have to have a tremendous variety of imported parts. Everything from semiconductors and memory chips on up to specialty steels that we can't seem to be able to make anywhere in this country. We have to have those if we're going to keep our military going. So the United States has to buy them overseas. Even if the United States stops importing oil, makes the price of domestic oil so high that it's prohibitive and diverts most domestic oil production to the use of the military machine, they still have to buy so many resources from overseas that they're going to be forced to find something to pay for those with hard currency. And one of them is going to be gold. Now you say, well, it can't possibly be because there's not enough value in the gold in my little gold coin to matter. Well, I suggest you do a little calculation. I just did this yesterday. You go and you look up the total amount of M1, that's the base money supply in the world. That's considered to be money that is readily available for spending. That's cash and that's checking accounts. It comes out to roughly $25 trillion. And then you go and you do a check to see how much gold there is in the world. Numbers on that are much more flexible, but there's something around, 155,000 tons on up to 200,000 tons. Do a quick division, do a quick calculation, boom, a number of $5,000 an ounce pops out. That's the amount of money that would have to back just the base currency supply if people traded it for use in everyday transactions. That's why the government needs your coin, because your coin is not worth $1,000. It's worth $5,000. And maybe in extremis, if the dollar keeps collapsing, as it probably will in a crisis, it could be worth $15 or $20 or $30 or $60,000. It could be worth a tremendous amount of money. So don't assume that the government is going to ignore whether or not you have gold. My advice to you here, like everything else, it's time to begin to go private. It's time to start hiding what you do. not just with communications, not just with firearms, but also with whatever assets you have, because otherwise there's a serious chance they're going to become confiscated. Now, there's another phenomenon that is going on with gold, and it's not strictly speaking a confiscation issue in the sense that I've just talked about, but it relates on it, which is the concept of bullion banks and fractional reserve banking. You know, fractional reserve banking is one in which you have an asset. Traditionally, it has been U.S. dollars, but before that, it used to actually be gold earlier in this history of the country. The bank would get that asset, would set it aside, and then lend out paper receipts for that gold as if they were money, issue them. They were called banknotes, and you could wind up promising 10, 20, 50, 100 times payment in gold for the small amount of gold it had sitting in the deposit. That's what fractional reserve banking does. And in fact, that's exactly what bullion banks right now do. If you take a look at the gold ETF fund, GLD, you dig into it, you will find that even though a share of gold ETF is supposed to be worth 1/10 of an ounce of gold, and the people that run the ETF tell you that if you turn in your share, you will get the dollar value of 1/10 of an ounce of gold. In fact, there's only 1/400th of an ounce of gold to back up every ETF share. It's a very, very small amount. That's fractional reserve banking. And the governments of the world, although the United States hasn't, other governments of the world right now are trying to actively take advantage of that as a method of confiscating gold. For instance, in India, there are religious significances tied in the Hindu religion to gold. The temples hoard it, they stock it. It's their form of emergency money for the members in their temple. And the government of India has gone to them and said, listen, we really have this good deal. We want you to put your gold on deposit with us, and we'll give you receipts for that gold. They're not saying that they'll give you a title to that gold. They're going to give you an IOU receipt for that gold. You see what happened? They took gold, which is equity money, and they are converting it into debt, which is a promise to pay. And they can promise to pay 5 or 10 or 20 or 100 times for every 1 ounce of gold sitting in that deposit. So what they've done de facto is that they have confiscated gold, and they're playing the old fractional reserve game to try and hide the fact. Now, in the case of India, the temples aren't buying any of it. Nobody in the Indian temples are turning in any of their gold. And it's very frustrating to the Indian government. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of tricks they play next. Turkey has just decided to do exactly the same thing. They have announced a gold fund in which you come into the Turkish government, you deposit money with the Turkish gold fund, they give you an IOU. And one of the incentives that they do, and I believe the Turks are actually trying to use this, is they will pay you interest. They will say, listen, you have your gold sitting at home, it doesn't pay you interest. Give it to us, and it has interest. That is one of the tip-offs that there's a scam going on, because money doesn't pay interest. Even debt money doesn't pay the holder interest. Look in your wallet. You have a Benjamin in your wallet, 2 or 3 or 4 probably, right? Well, okay. Let's say you have a 20 in your wallet. That's probably more realistic. A 20 in your wallet. Do you get any interest for that 20? No. In fact, you get negative interest because there's inflation taking place that makes it worth less. And that's true with every form of money in the world, including gold and silver when it is used as money. Money never pays interest. Well, what does pay interest? Loans. Only loans pay interest. You make loans with the understanding that whoever you loan the money to will produce something more of value and give part of that value that he produces back to you in interest in exchange for the loans. As soon as you hear somebody say that they're going to pay you interest on gold, you know they're loaning your gold out. You've got nothing but debt going on, because only debt pays interest. Equity does not pay interest. Nobody pays you interest if you own your home free and clear, do they? There is no interest paid on equity, only debt. So that's a tip-off that something very unusual is going on. I don't know whether the Turks are going to buy into this. I hope not. One of the reasons that they may not is because, like the Hindus, the Muslims have very strict religious prohibitions against using debt for anything, and that includes money. That's one of the things that the Quran makes it very clear that you must use some form of silver or gold because it's equity money. And so with luck, I hope for the Turks as well, nobody will pay attention to this skill game. I want you to understand what this game is, because there's a very real chance in the future, in spite of what the gold dealers tell you, that this game will be played, and you don't want to fall for it. Okay, let's see what else we have. Okay, well, this is an interesting one. It's actually rather long. Do I want to go into this? All right. No, let me talk about another one here. Let me skip down and talk to you about monopolies. You know, everybody keeps saying that we have to have governments to control monopolies. They say if we don't, you're going to wind up with monopolies running everything everywhere. I'd like to talk a little bit about monopolies and who monopolies compete against and why they fail, because they do fail on their own. If you're a monopoly and you manage through some natural process, not through some government regulation, which is what most monopolies use to maintain control of the marketplace, but some natural process, like, for instance, you develop a tremendous technology like Microsoft did, and that enables you to get a de facto monopoly, which Microsoft had. You wind up running up against a problem. It's not a competitor, because generally speaking, the nature of monopolies is you kill the competitors. You run up against the future. To be top, to make yourself number one is not easy. And in a free and open market, to do it twice in a row is just about impossible. Microsoft is an example. When I was young, Microsoft was taking over the world software-wise. You know, it was not just the operating system. It was Office. Every time you turned around, there was another Microsoft package that had been bought and added to the Microsoft monopoly. It was unstoppable. And then the future came. In this case, the future came in Linux, and the future destroyed Microsoft. You know, Microsoft may still be a big stock. It may still be functioning, but it's running on a hope and a prayer right now. Nobody considers Microsoft to be a monopolistic threat, and it wasn't driven out of the threat position because of any government regulation. Let me give you a second example. If you haven't heard of Baldwin locomotives, I suggest you look them up. Turn of the century, they made 3 times as many steam locomotives as their nearest competitor. And then World War I came, and people figured out how to make big diesel engines that drove electric motors. And GE said, hey, we can put this on a train track. And suddenly, diesel electric locomotives were born. Baldwin didn't want to corrupt their steam market, so they really didn't want to get involved. And guess what? The only Baldwin locomotives you see nowadays are sitting in museums. No regulation. Nobody cut Baldwin down to size. They're gone. The world is full of these examples. IBM is another. Go look up the rise and fall of IBM, and you'll see exactly what I mean. I'm glad you listened to me this hour. I hope you'll come back next hour. Listen to the Sam Spade Show.
40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Thank you.
News Talk 1240.
Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM News Now. A car plunged 100 feet off a cliff early this morning. The police say it happened on West Side Drive. Police closed the Bachman Tunnel while they were clearing the area. Traffic cops say the car actually crashed before going over the edge of the cliff. Photos show a maroon sedan being hoisted up by a crane. Windshield smashed and the front end mangled. 35-year-old Tyrone Stevenson was shot on Cityco Avenue, apparently driving himself to the hospital where the police were called to investigate what happened. Mr. Stevenson has not said who shot him, but he did say he was shot on the 1900 block of Citico Avenue. Violent Crimes Bureau investigating. Hamilton County School Board members agree they need more money, and they're going to be giving a $24.5 million needs list to county commissioners. School board members hope that the county commission will increase property taxes to help fund what the school board needs. So far, the county commission appears apprehensive about a tax increase. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Expect partly cloudy and warm weather out there through your afternoon. Could see a spotty shower, but most of it staying dry. Highs lower 80s. Tonight, muggy and mild lows, lower 60s. For Friday, a few widely scattered, mainly afternoon showers and storms, lower 80s, with more showers and storms later Saturday. Come to Larry's world-famous buffet in Trenton for some of the finest home-style cooking around. Larry also offers catering. That's Larry's, open Thursdays through Sundays, just off 559 on Highway 136 West, Trenton. And I'm Storm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore.